Oh my god, not again. Bastion, of course, yeah. Why not? You can't kill with anything else. Are you for real, dude? Ha! Felwinter's a lie. Yeah, try using something that actually requires skill, you meta whore. Two-tap, motherfucker, get good. Dodge, dodge, dodge. Use cover like a good player, yeah, sure. Asshole. That range makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's just... See if you can arbalest these nuts. Dune Marchers, are you serious? 3 one-eyed masks. 3. Fucking hell, Bungie. Put Stasis in the fucking game! 3 peeking. Great. Snipers are fine. Good work, Bungie. They're just fine. Fair and balanced. Yeah, melee me from further. Quick draw shotgun. Really, really high skill you got there, but 120s are in the game right now. I hate this fucking game sometimes.
I used to be this person. I used to be someone who would find any and all excuses to blame others for my own failings. I can't remember if there was any actual logic to that madness. I just remember caring so much about wanting to not suck at something that I made it my personal mission to improve. Not to be world class or tournament ready or anything like that, just good enough to help my friends and to make myself proud. And any time I would fall down, I would take it incredibly harshly. I would beat myself up over my positioning, my aim, my lack of game sense. And it got to a point where I quite literally ran out of things to blame myself on. So I started blaming other people and I started blaming the game as well. In Season 4, I made it a personal mission to get Not Forgotten. We had around 6 people for our 4-man fire team at the time, taking turns to bear the grind together. And every time we got close to the mythical rank of 2100, we'd fall down. I would get angry at myself, then the game, then my teammates. I thought myself above the lessons being presented right there in front of me, that I just got some bad luck there, or netcode decided to favour the other guy instead of me. And even after the eventual acquisition of Luna's Howl, the excuses didn't stop, and we couldn't break 3200 glory together. Every match was a mixture of blaming myself for being bad with Luna's Howl not having enough range for the positions I was taking up, or shotguns missing their pellets, and even my teammates being so far away from me, I swear it felt like I was emanating bad BO in-game. And after rationalizing with myself, I ended up breaking it off with my teammates and leaving my clan in search for pastures new. I thought I was better than them, and I let them know that to their face. And it's the single biggest regret I have with respect to playing video games. Of course, I found some new people to play with, and getting better with them was a real journey. And that journey was enlightening. Playing with players better than I was used to humbled me greatly. It made me realize that I was not competent at all, but very incompetent. I was conscious of my failings and how much I needed to grow as a player. And it opened up a whole world of possibilities for me. It allowed me to see how far from the ceiling I actually was. From that point on, I knew I had to stop complaining and start to divert that energy constructively to making some strides, big and small, to drastically improve. I was now the weak link. I was the person I got mad at in my previous friend group. I stopped blaming the game and my surroundings and shut right up, put my head down and got to work to not be the cause of yet another team wipe. And eventually, we got our prize, the Not Forgotten. But I knew the journey to improvement didn't stop there. Sometime later, I came across the Crucible Playbook subreddit and started following the guides and conversations there. Someone referenced an older post about the idea of not apologizing for whatever you use, and how everyone else who made excuses for themselves was subscribing to the single greatest collective mindset that besieges the Destiny 2 PvP community at large. That this mindset is perpetuated from creators and fans alike, constantly reinforced by the tone of the language used and the emotional intentions that drive every thought, comment, and message. I found the source article that post was based off, and when I read it, it hit me like a truck. It called me out and saw right past every angry, profane suggestion that I made to the developers, every 4 to 7 letter word that I called my opponents, and every single insult, veiled or unveiled, that I delivered to my teammates. And to this day, that article has overhauled my mindset and made me want to become a better person, both to myself and the people that I spend my time with to play a video game, what's meant to be the escape for our often draining realities. The article was an overview for a book written by David Serlin, called playing to win. And the idea that changed my world was a 2-word phrase: scrub mentality. The scrub mentality is a harsh sounding term, but I believe it's an appropriate one once you've heard the definition. David Serlin writes this about scrub mentality in his overview article. A scrub is not just a bad player. Everyone needs time to learn a game and get to a point where they know what they're doing. The scrub mentality is to be so shackled by self-imposed handicaps as to never have any hope of being truly good at a game. The key takeaway, and the purest essence of the lesson here, is to remember the line, self-imposed handicaps. Thinking that you need to get kills a certain way, with certain weapons, or because you think you're above winning using a few methods that others may be frowned down upon, ultimately, this serves nobody but the guy opposite you who couldn't give two shits about shutting down your streak with a Jotun. How many times have you heard people say, "That's cheesy," or "This is broken"? How many times have you seen people trash snipers, fusions, or grenade launchers, but happily pick up weapons like Fellwinter's Lie and argue that they take skill to use? These are the handicaps. Arbitrary rules set by someone looking to shame others for the way they play. David Serlin continues on. Scrubs are likely to label a wide variety of moves and tactics as cheap. For example, performing a throw in fighting games is often called cheap. A throw is a move that grabs an opponent and damages them even while they're defending against all other kinds of attacks. Throws exist specifically to allow you to damage opponents who block and don't attack. In Destiny 2, the equivalent of a throw attack might be the use of a grenade launcher. It's a class of weapon that works in just about every situation you can think of, irrespective of what the opponent is doing, what their status is, and what their intentions are. People call them cheap and problematic, and whilst that may have merit during the discussions on balancing the game, in the heat of the battle, you cannot dismiss their strength and situational versatility. If you don't account for them, well, you're throwing. As far as the game is concerned, the throw mechanic is an integral part of the design. It's meant to be there, yet scrubs think of blocking as a kind of magic shield which will protect them indefinitely. Throwing violates the rules in their heads, even though it doesn't violate any actual game rule. It's that last sentence that gets me every time. It violates the rules in their heads, even though it doesn't violate any actual game rule. If it's in the game, it's there to be used. Whatever your thoughts are about any tool or mechanic in the game, they're surplus to the requirements of a winner's mentality. Rules in one's head also manifests as this common player idea of honor, that you're too good to use such a loathsome and demeaning tactic. This is a common trope from people who like to think that Dire Promise is the most skillful primary in the game, whilst conveniently forgetting that it's saddled with an aim assist value of 92. Perhaps you want to prove something to yourself by not using the strongest weapons, and that's fine. But you are, by your own admission, nerfing yourself and what you could be capable of. Choosing not to use a 120 RPM hand cannon with Rampage for a 140 RPM hand cannon with Rangefinder isn't noble, it's actually making life harder for yourself. Going off meta for some weird personal vindication of being better than the low skill presence in your eyes for using other weapons is just, well, it's just a little cringe at the end of the day. Speaking of skill, Serlin writes, the concept of skill is yet another excuse to add fictional rules and avoid making the best moves. Curiously, scrubs often talk about how they have skill, whereas other players, very much including the ones that beat them flat out, do not have skill. This might be some sort of ego defense mechanism where people define skill as whatever subset of the game they're good at and then elevate that above actually trying to win. It's absolutely fine to play Destiny your way, and if you have fun with excluding certain guns from your rotation, playing private matches with restrictive rule sets, or simply like using off-meta stuff, then power to you. But if you then go out and insist on others playing a way that only you and your friends approve of, well, that's the definition of gatekeeping, and also a pretty clear sign that you have severe scrub mentality. By now, you may be kicking yourself here for not realizing how much scrub mentality you've displayed in the past, but the future doesn't have to reflect the past. Let's follow a very basic principle here. In video games, the solution to a problem is usually doing the opposite of what enables the problem. Dying out in the open, use more cover. Losing your gunfights, practice with your guns more. Not good with your super, play more mayhem. Scrub mentality's harder, partially because it's in the name. It's a mentality. Telling you to stop complaining is just a half measure and a band-aid fix to a much more pervasive attitude. You may not complain today, tomorrow, or the day after that, but you will complain again. We've just temporarily stifled a symptom of the underlying motivation. So what's the fix here? Well, if scrub mentality is the absence of ownership of one's actions, then it stands to reason that we reverse that. Total ownership. That means accepting that whatever comes will come. The acceptance of Murphy's Law, where everything bad that can happen will happen. Admitting mistakes and taking defeats on the chin, seeking to understand and learn from situations where your current level of knowledge wasn't good enough to see you through. So it's still a reversal, like I mentioned before. It's just very deep-rooted. If scrub mentality is the cavity, then total ownership is the filling. If you want to learn more about the concept of total or extreme ownership, I highly recommend the book of the same name by Jocko Willink, who is a former Navy SEAL. In the book, he expounds upon the concept of extreme ownership and how the best tenets of that lead to the development of more complete leaders who are able to act valiantly during the most stressful situations. Of course, this is difficult. This is tough. It's so much easier to go back to your favorite salty content creator instead, parrot their opinions like gospel, and continue fighting against Luke Smith, Lars Bakken, or whoever is the Bungie boogeyman du jour. But you've made it this far. This is one possible solution of many, but also the simplest. It's just hard to act upon because it actually requires effort. I said earlier that abandoning my friends was my greatest regret of my video gaming history. Even though it was the correct decision to further me as a player, it's the way I did it and the intentions behind why I left that was so bad. In hindsight, I wasn't better than them. I was appropriately leveled for my abilities, and the fact that we never broke 3200 together was an indictment on my trait as a shot caller and strategist. I was the anchor, but all I did was drag the ship down with my negativity. It took me a while to realize that I was unconsciously incompetent. I blamed everyone and everything, but me. Criticizing the game is important, and we should be able to do that in a healthy way that makes sense for the time and the situation the game's in. We're a stronger community when we can voice our agreements and disagreements with respect, but criticizing the game at every opportunity is pointless. It's not serving anyone but yourself. And when you blame something you can't control, you're implicitly giving yourself permission to offload the blame to that thing instead. There could be a massive lesson in positioning, leading your shots, game awareness, or basically a team strategy that you could see, but if all you're concerned about is the tracking strength of a cold snap grenade, then how will you ever see it? How will you ever learn? Everyone loves a good moan when things go wrong. So do I. But having a moan is not the same as outright blaming something for holding you back. Having a moan isn't the same as projecting or gatekeeping. The difference, as ever, is how you choose to respond. Do you spiral, or do you learn to pick yourself back up? Because even the best players fall down hard. They'll take it on the chin and shrug it off. When the game ends, a new one is waiting to begin. Dust yourself off because it's time to go again. It's the equivalent of a new day, a new opportunity to show your best self. You don't get to where you want to be by swearing at content creators or community managers all day. You get better by playing the game and playing with intent. A person that uses whatever and doesn't apologize for it is a person who wins. They're not interested in your vain ideas of honor or properness. It's a video game, for heaven's sake. Nobody's going to come after you for playing to win to your heart's content. After all, a lion doesn't concern himself with the opinion of a sheep. Be the lion. Go out and start doming the streamers who whine for a living. It's a hell of a good time. If you like this video, you know what to do. I'm Ascendant Nomad, and I'm your Crucible Doctor. Cheers.